My name is Ellie Mercer. I was 37 the day I buried my husband in front of 200 people, and not one of them shared my last name by blood. At the exact minute they lowered Sam into the ground, my phone lit up with photos from my sister's birthday dinner. Silver balloons. A sparkler cake. My mother raising a wine glass at the camera. The night before, she'd answered my funeral invitation with one text: "Tomorrow is your sister's birthday. We can't come." My parents chose a dinner reservation over my husband's casket, then posted the proof online for everyone to see. For 7 months after that, none of them called me. Not once. Then a headline about me hit every doorstep in town, and the same people who couldn't spare 9 minutes for a funeral suddenly called me 9 times before lunch. What they found out I was sitting on, and what I did about it at a ribbon cutting in front of the whole county, none of them saw coming. Welcome to the channel where the people who were supposed to love you first become the story you survive instead. If your family has ever measured your worth by what you show off instead of who you are, this one's for you. Stay until the end, because that headline is coming. Sam died on a Thursday in October, standing in the paint aisle of the hardware store he'd run for 19 years. An aneurysm. No warning. He was 43. Frank, his store manager and best friend, called me mid-lecture in front of 38th graders, and I remember the hallway, then almost nothing until a hospital parking lot. That same morning he'd tucked a joke into my lunch bag, the way he did most days. And here's the detail the whole town repeated for months afterward. The last thing Sam ever rang up, less than 2 minutes before he collapsed, was a box of deck screws for a teenager building his grandmother a wheelchair ramp. Half price. He always charged half price for ramps and school projects, and waved off your thanks if you said it too loud. By Friday morning, flowers were stacked against the store's door and a crayon drawing taped to the glass. Frank stood in the middle of it holding the keys, not sure which would break him worse, opening the store or keeping it shut. I called my mother that night from Sam's side of the bed, because it still smelled like sawdust and peppermint, and I needed exactly 1 phone call's worth of courage. I told her my husband had died. There was a pause, then my mother, Diane Hensley, said what she says at church: "Oh honey, how awful." In the same breath, her real question: "Will it be a big service? A lot of people from the store? Not are you okay?" A head count. The funeral landed on the following Tuesday, my sister Chloe's 32nd birthday. I knew when I chose it. It was the only day the church and cemetery could both take us, and I honestly believed no family on earth would need that explained. The morning before, ironing my black dress, my phone buzzed. My mother. One text, no call: "Tomorrow is your sister's birthday. We can't come." I waited for a second message. None came. I thought that would be the cruelest thing she ever sent me. I was wrong. The cruelest thing had a caption. 200 people filled that church. Ushers propped the doors so the overflow crowd on the steps could hear. 20 years of customers came: farmers, plumbers, couples Sam had talked out of the pricier faucet. My former students, some grown with kids of their own. An entire little league team in uniform, because Sam had quietly paid for those uniforms every spring and sworn the coach to secrecy, a secret the coach broke that day. Devon, 19, the kid Sam had promised to train, stood at the back wall and cried the way young men cry when they've lost the only adult who ever bet on them. The front pew, marked reserved for family, sat empty the whole service. Rosa, my neighbor of 6 years, looked at that empty pew for maybe 10 seconds, then walked up from the 5th row and sat beside me without a word. She held my hand through the whole thing. A woman who'd known me 6 years did what people who'd known me 37 would not. At 2 o'clock, as they lowered my husband into the ground, my phone lit up in my coat pocket. Everyone tells you not to look. I looked anyway. 31 photos, posted publicly, time-stamped between 2 and 2:30, the exact half hour my husband went into the earth. Silver balloons spelling my sister's name. A cake with lit sparklers. My mother in the teal dress she saves for photos, lifting a wine glass. My father mid-laugh in a paper party hat. My brother-in-law Marcus with his arm around my sister, who wore the careful, camera-checked smile she's had since childhood. My mother's caption: "Family is everything," with a champagne emoji. I stood at my husband's grave in my ironed black dress and scrolled through all 31 photos twice, while a stranger filled the earth behind me. I didn't comment. I want that on record, because everything I did afterward grew out of that one choice. I turned my phone off and listened to the shovel instead. Here's the detail I couldn't stop calculating, because I'm a science teacher and numbers are how I hold myself together. The restaurant with those balloons sits 9 minutes from the church. 9 minutes. Remember that number, because 7 months later, they'd all drive much farther and much faster for a different reason. Let me tell you who they skipped a funeral for. I met Sam 11 years ago when my classroom heater died in January and the district said repairs were scheduled for spring. He fixed it after hours for nothing and left before I could thank him. We married within the year at the courthouse, because neither of us needed an audience for the truest thing we'd ever done. No kids of our own. The kids at the store and the kids in your classroom are ours, he told me once, and meant it. He drove a 13-year-old truck and owned 2 shirts he considered formal. Asked once how a small hardware store survives big box competition, he said, "Show up." That's the whole secret. It was his entire philosophy. In his desk drawer sat a plain folder, cheap graph paper, labeled Sam's Workshop, a free trade school for local kids we'd sketched over 5 winters, taught in the back of the store, with a column in his handwriting labeled Someday. My husband rang up nails for a living, and nobody in my family ever asked what he was quietly building with the rest of his life. The Hensleys run on appearances. My sister Chloe married Marcus, a dentist with a leased sedan and a parking lot smile, and their wedding portrait hangs above my parents' fireplace at nearly the size of a window. My mother left our courthouse lunch early with a headache that cleared up in time for bridge. My own wedding photo lives in the guest room, behind a ceramic bird. I understood my role in that family 6 years ago, overhearing my mother tell Aunt Peg at the sink, "He's just a shopkeeper, Peg." Not cruelly, the way you'd recite a zip code. My role was never daughter. I was staff. I planned the parties, drove her to appointments, wrapped the gifts she gave to other people, including, twice, my own. Sam watched it all and never fought them over it. He just sent my mother flowers every birthday, quietly, for years. She never put them where guests could see. Grief doesn't pause your life. I went back to my classroom after 2 weeks, because 13-year-olds are loud enough to drown out almost anything. Some nights I sat in the cab of Sam's truck because it still smelled like him. Here's the complete record of my family's support in 6 weeks. Nothing. The one exception, a text, "Hope you're holding up. Did the store leave you with debts?" People are asking. My husband was dead 6 weeks, and her concern was the family's reputation. I sent back 4 words, "No debts, Mom." The truest understatement I've ever written. Every evening that winter I opened Sam's folder. Somewhere in those weeks it stopped being his dream and started feeling like an instruction I was already late for. The first week of December, a letter arrived from attorney Nora Bishop, estate of Samuel Mercer, "Please call to schedule." I put on one of his flannel shirts and made the call. Nora walked me through my husband's other life. The store and building, owned outright. 3 rental properties held in an LLC, tenants happy, roofs sound. Ordinary index funds, fed every month for 2 decades straight through 2 recessions without a single missed contribution. Just over $2 million. All of it to me. I didn't gasp. What broke something open was seeing the whole shape of it at once, 20 years of a man quietly stacking patience like firewood, while the town assumed he was scraping by and my family had decided he was a nobody. Then Nora slid across one more page, not typed, graph paper, Sam's pencil handwriting. "If you're reading this, the folder in my desk, finish it, Birdie." My husband left me $2 million and 1 instruction, and only the instruction actually scared me. The store sat dark 2 months, until one January morning somebody knocked on the glass. Devon, hood up, hands jammed in his pockets, asked in one long exhale whether the apprenticeship Sam had promised him was still real. No big deal, obviously the biggest deal in his world. Mother sick, father long gone, no map to anywhere better. Sam had once caught him admiring a chisel he couldn't afford and hired him for Saturdays instead of watching him like a shoplifter. "He told me I had a carpenter's eye," Devon said. "Nobody ever told me anything like that." I told him to come back Saturday, then flipped the sign from closed to back soon. We reopened the first Saturday of February, And the town did what small towns do when something matters. Everyone came and bought one small thing they didn't need. By the counter, the condolence book filled 3 more pages. 200 people at the funeral, 3 pages of names, and not one Hensley among them. The people who shared my blood were a blank space you could measure. In late February, a reporter left her card on the counter. Whenever you're ready, this town would love to know what happens next with Mercer Hardware. I slid it into the folder. Not yet. Soon. I saw my mother exactly once that winter. Rosa dragged me back to church in March, and my mother spotted me across the fellowship hall, cupped my face, and said at exactly the volume the committee required, "There's my girl. We're so close through all this, aren't we?" 20 minutes later, in the parking lot, with no audience, the warmth drained out of her voice completely. Easter was coming. The whole family would gather. I should come, and please don't make a scene about the birthday thing. People talk. The birthday thing. 7 months of silence, 31 balloon photos over an open grave, and in her ledger the only injury on record was that people might discuss it. That's when I understood the machine I'd been raised inside. The sin was never the missed funeral. The sin was the funeral having witnesses. She didn't need my forgiveness. She needed my cooperation with the story that the Hensleys are a close, attractive family, and everything else is weather. I told her I'd think about Easter. I drove home past the store, and the sight of Sam's sign settled something in my chest. She could keep her story. I was about to start telling a different one, in pencil, on graph paper, at first. In April I went back to Nora and asked her to build the school legally, permanently, in one specific shape. $1.8 million would fund an endowment for a free trade school, Sam's workshop, in the store's back building, inside an irrevocable charitable trust. Irrevocable is the most beautiful, ugly word in the law. No one can ever undo it, rename it, or redirect it. Not a judge, not a relative, not a softer future version of me. Nora asked, as she's required to, 3 separate times, whether I understood I could never get the money back under any circumstance. 3 times I said yes, because here's the truth I'd worked out alone in Sam's truck. I wasn't locking that money away from my family. I was locking it away from my own worst hope. I knew that 37 years of wanting a seat at that table doesn't die from one funeral, and that some soft evening my mother could cry in my kitchen and I might try to buy a family back with my husband's savings. So I welded the door shut while my hands were steady. 2 days later, I signed. For days later I called the reporter. We sat on paint buckets after close, and I told her about Sam, the classroom heater, the secret uniforms, the half-price screws, the someday column. Not one word about my family. She noticed the shape of that silence and didn't poke at it. The story ran that Saturday, front page, widow turns hardware store into free trade school, $1.8 million gift honors the man who always showed up. On every porch in 3 counties by breakfast. My phone rang for the first time at 9:38. My mother. I let it go. By 1 o'clock I had 9 missed calls, my mother, my father, my sister, Marcus, 2 cousins who hadn't dialed my number in years. 7 months of silence. 1 headline about money, 9 calls before lunch. Every one of them from people who couldn't spare 9 minutes for a funeral. That evening I listened to the voicemails in order, like tree rings. My mother, festive at first. Birdie, we saw the paper, we are so proud, call your mother. Colder by afternoon. This involves the whole family, we have things to discuss. Involves the family. 7 months too late, aimed at a bank balance. By evening, the mask fully off. Your father is very hurt you didn't tell us. After everything, call me tonight. I laughed alone in my kitchen. Marcus texted about a business idea I was going to love. 2 cousins resurfaced like fish after rain. My sister sent only 1 line. Late that night, the paper made me cry. Can I call you sometime? Here's the arithmetic I did before bed, because numbers are how I hold on. My husband died and my family managed 0 calls in 7 months. A newspaper said $1.8 million, and they managed 9 calls in 4 hours. My mother finally came looking for me the exact day I became worth being seen with. That Sunday, my parents pulled into my driveway carrying supermarket carnations, receipt still stapled on. My mother hugged me on my own porch for the first time since the wedding. She'd left early, holding on one extra beat, angled toward the street. Inside, her eyes swept my living room like a realtor's. "This place has real bones," she said. I never noticed. She'd had the address 11 years. My father called Sam's tool wall a heck of a setup, practically a eulogy from him. Then my mother folded her hands and began her rewrite. "We always said it. Sam was the steadiest man in this town." I used my classroom voice, the one for correcting a wrong answer without humiliating the student. "No, Mom. You said he was just a shopkeeper." Christmas, 6 years ago, at the sink. One beat of silence, then she smiled the way you'd drive over a pothole without slowing. "Well, we'd love to have you for dinner Sunday. The whole family, to celebrate you." I said yes, not because I believed her, but because a scientist doesn't get to skip the experiment. Sunday dinner had the production values of a holiday commercial. My mother raised her glass, to family, looking right at me with something an anthropologist might call warmth. My sister's eyes dropped to her plate on that word, like it carried a weight only she felt. They asked about the school with studied casualness. "How big? Who decides? Is it a board or," Marcus asked, swirling his wine, "just all you?" "All me," I said pleasantly, and watched the answer travel around the table like a current. Dessert arrived, my mother's lemon cake, the one she bakes when something is being celebrated or extracted. Marcus set down his fork and produced the voice he must use before the drill comes out. He'd been thinking about synergy. His practice needed a bridge. $140,000, said fast, like tearing tape. An investment, really. My mother leaned in on cue. Family invests in family, Birdie. 7 months of silence, one headline, one roast, and a family motto freshly minted for the occasion. I asked my one question, level, the way I do when a student is about to see their own mistake. When Sam died, the store needed hands for a week. Frank was there alone at 6 every morning. Not one person at this table offered an hour. What changed? Marcus recovered first. "Well, we're not really hardware people." He heard how it landed and stopped. Then my mother patted my hand twice, sealing an envelope, and mentioned one more small thing, the name on the school. "Sam's workshop is sweet, but sweet isn't legacy." We were thinking the Hensley Family Foundation. The ribbon cutting would be the event of the summer, the paper would be there, maybe a city station, and the family should be part of it properly. Front row. A few words from her. The name on the gate. "There's no Mercer family left, sweetheart," she said gently, as if breaking sad news rather than erasing a man. "You're a Hensley. Let the family stand behind you on this." I gave her the plain truth. The endowment was signed, sealed, irrevocable, the name written into the trust itself. It could never change, not by me, not by anyone, ever. She took this the way she takes every inconvenient fact, as an opening position. "Everything can be renegotiated, honey." That's when I saw it whole. They didn't need the school's money. They needed its name, the one thing Sam had never owed them, credit. By Wednesday, the town's weather had changed. My mother had been seeding clouds. A woman at the pharmacy told me, "Your mother is just heartbroken, after everything she's done for you girls." I recognized every gear in that machine, having spent 37 years as one of them. My mother never argues facts. She tells her version at the right volume and lets the town do the pressing. She doesn't need you to agree. She needs you to get tired. Then one Thursday night, a text that didn't fit the pattern. "My sister, can I come by tomorrow? Just me. Don't tell Mom." In 32 years, I couldn't remember one time Chloe had wanted to be somewhere our mother didn't know about. I texted back, "Come." She sat at my kitchen table, circling nothing, then stopped. I asked her to move the party, she said to her mug. I begged her. She said no. "You want the real reason?" The deposit was non-refundable. $150, Birdie. That's what his funeral was worth to her. I asked the question I'd carried since the graveside. "Did you post those pictures?" She flinched. "Mom took my phone." She said grief doesn't need an audience, but a birthday does. I believed every tear, and it didn't change a single thing I had to do next. My father came to the store alone one Saturday, then bought a hammer he clearly didn't need. Your mother just wants us all together again. She means well underneath, Birdie. Underneath. My entire childhood lives in that word. I asked the only question I had left. Where were you at 2 o'clock that Tuesday? He looked at the hammer. There was cake, he said, then heard it. I watched a 65-year-old man register the size of what he'd just said. He paid with a 20 and left his change on the counter. Everything that man ever handed me came out even and on time, except the one thing that counted. I took my last questions to Aunt Peg, who poured iced tea, let me get it all out, then rocked for a while. You know about the lawn, she said. Not a question. My mother was 12 when her father's business failed, men carrying furniture onto the front lawn for the street to inspect. Her best friend watched from across the road and never waved. She didn't grow up rich, Peg said. She grew up never wanting to be looked at like that again. Every photo she posts is a shield. And you married a man who didn't care who was watching. You have no idea how frightening that is to her. I understand my mother now about as well as I ever will, a 12-year-old still guarding a pile of repossessed furniture, 60 years later. Understanding why she built the shield doesn't mean I owe it my husband's name. My mother came alone, 2 weeks before the ribbon cutting, no flowers, no audience, which alone told me to pay attention. She sat in Sam's chair and made her final offer. I'm asking you as your mother, not for money. Technically true, she'd asked through Marcus instead. Front row. A few words from me. The family name on the gate. Give me that, Birdie, and it's over. You get your family back. Everything like before, but better. It worked on me. Not the plaque, the picture. 37 years I'd waited to hear her say it out loud, and some starving part of me stood up at the smell of it. She saw that too. You'll never eat a holiday alone again, sweetheart. For one long night, I wanted to say yes. Then, after midnight, I opened Sam's folder again. Everything I needed was filed where I'd left it, the someday column, and in the corner, a joke he'd written to himself, Rule 1 of the school, show up. On top sat Devon's enrollment form, beside a photo of the entry gate Frank had built from store oak, blank, waiting for its carving. I wrote the speech twice. The first draft named them, the text, the balloons, the silence, accurate as a lab report. I read it aloud and it felt like power. Then I heard what it actually was. If I put them in the speech, they'd live in the school's story forever, and every kid who walked through that gate would have to walk through my grievance first. Sam's gate didn't owe them a doorway, not even his villains. I tore up the first draft and wrote the true one, and it wasn't about the Hensleys at all. Saturday came up bright and windless. 200 folding chairs filled the lot where Sam's truck used to park. A red ribbon stretched across Frank's oak gate. The Little League team sat in uniform because Sam had bought those jerseys and he was going to see them worn. Into all of this, at 9:15, drove the Hensleys, dressed like an insurance commercial. My mother headed straight for the front row and stopped, because the front row had name cards, hand-lettered by my 8th graders. Devon, first student. Rosa. Frank. Mrs. Okafor, who bought a hinge. The reporter in the red coat. One empty chair at the aisle, Sam Mercer, founder. The Hensley seats were in row 4, with everyone else. She found me at the edge of the stage, smiling for the crowd while speaking through the smile just for me. Fix the seating, sweetheart. And you'll mention the family in your remarks. People are watching. People are watching. Her entire worldview in 3 words. I asked her the only question I had left. What was the deposit, Mom? She blinked. The band went quiet. What? The restaurant deposit. That Tuesday. I kept my voice level, nowhere to hide in it. $150. Chloe asked you to move the party. You said no because of a $150 deposit. That's the exchange rate. I think of it every time you say the word family. For 3 full seconds, my mother had no line ready. I'd never seen that happen before. Then the machine caught again, her voice dropping into velvet, hand on my wrist. Don't do this today, Birdie. Give the speech right, and it all goes away. Even now, surrounded by 200 people who'd come for a man who never checked who was watching, she was still negotiating the camera angle. 90 seconds to the microphone. 37 years on one side of a scale, a good man's name on the other. I stepped up with Sam's folder under my arm, and I didn't apologize for any of it. I told them about a man who fixed a stranger's classroom heater and ran from the thank you. About the secret uniforms, and the coach who finally broke that promise. About the last box of deck screws, half price, for a wheelchair ramp. Then I turned to the front row and gave the honor where it had always belonged. Devon, who knocked on a closed door and became this school's first student. Rosa, who sat beside me the first night and every night after. Frank, who opened this store alone at 6 the morning after he lost his best friend. This school wasn't built with money. It was built by people who showed up. I nodded to Frank. He pulled the drop cloth. Carved across the header, traced from Sam's own pencil line, show up. That's the whole secret. 200 people rose out of their chairs. Under the applause, I leaned back to the microphone one last time. This endowment is permanent. Permanent means it can never be renamed, redirected, or renegotiated by anyone, including me. Some things should stay exactly what the man who built them meant them to be. I never said the word Hensley. I never once looked at row 4. The absence was the answer, and everyone it was meant for received it. My mother left in the middle of a standing ovation, chin high, purse squared, my father and Marcus trailing behind her like luggage. Chloe stood a moment longer, looked at the gate, and at me, then went too, but she looked back once, at the gate. I hold on to that. At the edge of the lot, my mother turned around, and for the first time in my life her voice cracked loose from its own volume control. Do you know what it's like to be looked down on your whole life? There she finally was, not the church committee empress, but a 12-year-old on a lawn full of somebody else's furniture. I didn't use the microphone. I said it just loud enough to reach her. Yes, Mom. I learned it at your table. She stood still a moment, then got in the car, and the applause behind me washed over the sound of the engine. Here's what I want you to know about the cost, because these stories always lie about it. I hadn't thrown Marcus his rope, and his practice was going to fail, and it would pull my sister's whole life down with it, and I could have stopped it. Choosing yourself has a body count of other people's dreams. Nobody tells you that part. Within a week my mother's version moved through the church auxiliary like a flu. Poor Diane, humiliated by her own daughter, on camera. I corrected no one. The old me would have bled herself out trying to be believed. But I'd run the numbers. My mother got the town's ears, and I got its hands. 40 volunteers signed up at the ribbon cutting alone. Let her keep the story. I kept the carpenters. Marcus left one voicemail that week, no pitch, just a tired man saying the practice was sold, debt settled, and at the end, flat as a receipt, you probably did the math right, Birdie. I didn't call back. There was nothing left in my hands he was owed. The saws started up in September. A year after the ribbon cutting, the school graduated its first class, 14 kids in work boots, certificates cut from oak veneer because paper hadn't felt serious enough. Devon finished top of his class, the first in his family to hold apprenticeship papers. That same week, my sister knocked on the workshop door after closing. Alone, in jeans, nothing camera-ready about her. The practice is gone, she said. Sold. We moved into a small house on Maple. And weirdly, I can actually breathe there. She didn't ask for money. What she asked instead, standing beneath her late brother-in-law's handwriting, was, how did you learn to stop performing? I don't know how to stop. I gave her the only true answer I have. Somebody watched me with no camera in the room. Start there. She helps at the bake table some Fridays now. We are not healed. We are something more useful. We are honest. My mother still tells the town the school was a family vision she always encouraged. The machine keeps running. It simply lost my address. My father visits once a month, buys one small thing he never needs, pays in exact change. Last month he managed a full sentence, your husband would be proud of you. Late by a lifetime, and I took it anyway. Most evenings I'm the one who locks up last. On the way out I press my hand flat against the carved header of Frank's gate, the way some people touch a doorpost. I think about that text message sometimes. Tomorrow is your sister's birthday. We can't come. You don't get to unmemorize a thing like that. You only get to file it where it belongs. Here's where I filed it. My mother taught me that family can decide it simply can't come. 200 strangers taught me that family is whoever shows up anyway. The seat I spent my whole life begging for at their table turned out to be nothing more than a folding chair. And the table I built instead now seats an entire town. Sam was right about all of it, and it's the only inheritance that actually matters, the one carved over a gate where money can never reach it. Show up. That's the whole secret. Love was never the word cut into that wood. It's the boots that keep walking through it, every single day since. If your family has ever measured you by what you could show off instead of who you are, tell me your story below. I read every one. And subscribe, because next week's story cuts even deeper.